Welcome to my session. This is Abhilash Velukai. Today we are going to discuss about Veeam backup and replication with version 11, which is the latest version available from Veeam. As you all know, Veeam backup and replication is a backup software which protects all of the workloads like VMware, Hyper-V, AWS, Azure, Windows, Linux, etc. Even Solaris, and with for the endpoints, it started supporting Apple Mac OS as well with the latest version. So here my objective is to show you Veeam backup and replication console, familiarize with the console and to create a backup jobs. Also, I will show you how to add repositories, Hyper-V servers, and we will create a backup job with two virtual machines residing on a Hyper-V server. We will back up these two virtual machines. Before starting this, I will show you the scenario which I have. I have prepared a test lab for you. I will show you that. Just a second. So this is the test lab which I have created. It has a DC01, it's a domain controller, and a Veeam backup and replication server. Also, I have created a Hyper-V servers with the two virtual machines running on it. It's a file server and a DC to DC02 I have created as a virtual machine. So our objective is to create a backup job, and we will take a backup of these Hyper-V servers and the two virtual machines residing on these Hyper-V servers. Okay, so we will start. So this is the backup and replication console which I have installed on a backup server. Okay, the server which I have used is a HP DL380 server. On the top of that, it's a physical server. On top of that, I have installed Veeam backup and replication version 11. Okay, so as soon as you installed, the console will look like this. It will install as a community edition. Yeah, as soon as you activate the license, it will change his mode to enterprise or enterprise plus according to your license. So here you can see a lot of tabs like inventory, backup infrastructure, history. Also, you can add more tabs like storage infrastructure, tab infrastructure, files here. Yeah. So you can click on each of the tabs and you can see the options available inside these tabs. So this is the first console which is available for you after the installation, which is a community edition. So now I will install the license in it. So I have a license here, which is a trial license, yeah, which I am using it only for this test purpose. See, as soon as I install the licenses, it's changed the edition to Enterprise Plus. Okay. So in this machine, this is my backup server, and in my backup server, I have a 2.2 TB local drives attached as an E drive. So we will use this drive as a repository in Veeam. So as you know, Veeam has three main components: a backup server, which is responsible for coordination of backups and replication and recovery verifications and restore tasks. Okay, it also controls backup and replication server also controls the job scheduling and resource allocation. We have one more component, the second component, which is the main component called proxy server, which is actually a data mover. It moves the data from source to the repository. Say, for example, if you are taking a backup of Hyper-V server or the virtual machine inside the Hyper-V server, this will move the data from this Hyper-V to the repository. And also we have something called repository. Repository is nothing but it's a location, it's a data storage location where you store your backup files. Okay, so first I will add the backup server, backup repository into the console. For that, you need to go to the backup infrastructure tab. where you can see an option called backup repository. Okay, so by default it has taken a backup repository, which is our E drive. I have already configured it. If you want, you can add more repositories inside it. Okay, I will just show you how to add this repository. So just right click and add repository. So you will have most of the options, like direct attached means if you have a storage volume attached to a particular server, you can select this option. You can use a NAS device as a backup repository. You can use deduplication appliance like HP Store Ones or Dell EMC data domain which is an appliance deduplication device, which also can supported by Veeam backup and replication. And also you can add object storage as a backup repository. So here I will use I used direct attached storage because my hard drive is it's a local drive of 2.3 TB, which you can see as an E drive. So just click on a Windows server, Microsoft Windows server. So you will get an option. Just put the name whatever you want, it's repository or repository 1. Just click next. Here you need to select the repository server. So in my case, I am using my Veeam server as the repository. So by default, it has taken Veeam server. And just click, if you click populate, it will populate all the drives inside this Veeam server. Okay, so in my case, my E drive is I am selecting as a repository. So just double click on it and just click next. It taken this folder as repository. You can change the folder, you can browse it. You have many options here. You can create a new folder. Yeah, and you can give that path if you want. Just click next. See here, Veeam backup and replication. It's saying the specified REFS volume is formatted with this 4K size. Okay, we recommend it formatting with 64 KB size. Veeam recommend to use with REFS volume format. So yeah, as you know, it is a REFS is a cloning technology which is called resilient file system. Yeah, if you Veeam is recommending to use REFS as a formatted volume as a repository because it give faster synthetic full backup operation, as it uses this fast cloning technology. So as test purpose, you can change it by formatting. You can change the KB size to 64 KB if you want. For me, I am just using it as 4 KB. I will just click next. This will add some required services onto the backup proxies. It will install some required features. And just click finish. See, now it is asking change the configuration backup. See, Veeam has something called configuration backup, which always saves in the default backup repository. So this configuration backup include the backup job information, the backup file index, like the proxy information, and informations like repository information, all stores in this backup configuration file. So if your Veeam server lost, you just need to import this configuration file, which will restore all your backup files, backup job information, proxy information, everything will be restored. So in my case, since I already created a default backup repository, I will just create the new one which I created, and I will use the existing default backup repository as my repository. The second option here is to add a proxy server. So in my case, I'm just using my server, Veeam server, as a backup proxy. So if you want to add another server, you have this option. You can add a physical server as a backup proxy. You can add a VMware as a backup proxy. You can add a Hyper-V machine as a backup proxy. So you have many options here. I can just show you the options if you want. So this is where when you click add a backup proxy, you have this option. So it will, you can select this option. So in my case, Veeam server is the backup server, so it is detecting it by default. If you want to add a new server as a backup repository, you just click this option, add new, and provide the IP address and credentials to it. That's all. So in my case, I am using my backup server as proxy. Okay, maximum concurrent task, how many tasks you want to run on this proxy, you can just mention it. Because I already have a backup server, it is not allowing me to uh, go ahead. So I will just show you the properties. So here, just selecting the server and transport mode. Veeam has many transport mode like direct storage access, virtual appliance, and network mode. So in my case, I selected it as an automatic selection so that the system will define itself. I mean, the system will automatically select which mode is suitable, which is the best for it to run in a faster manner. Okay, connected data stores also we have option here. So just clicking next, apply, and it will install the required features in it, and that's all. Just click finish. So backup proxy is also configured, and if you come back to the inventory, yeah, I will come back to my home page. So here is the page where we can create the backup job. Okay, so before adding, now we have created backup proxy and backup repositories we have already created. Now the next step is to add the server. So in our case, as I mentioned, in my scenario, I will add Hyper-V server. Okay, and we will take backup of these two virtual machines inside the Hyper-V server. File server and DC2 are the virtual machines running inside this Hyper-V server. So we will take backup of these two server. Okay, so our objective is to add Hyper-V server in the Veeam console. So just come here, we'll come to the inventory. See, virtual infrastructure, you have option here to add server. Okay, so when you add server, you have an option to select VMware or Hyper-V. You can add VMware server. If in our case we have Hyper-V, so we will select this option. If you go back, when you select Hyper-V, can you see here they have an option, you can add SCVMM server, so that as soon as you add it, all the virtual machines inside this SCVMM will come to the inventory of this Veeam backup server. Okay, Hyper-V cluster and also standalone host. So in our case, we have a standalone host, so we will select this Hyper-V and we will give the IP address. So in our case, the IP address is the Hyper-V server IP address is 192.168.10.20. Just click next. So in my case, it's just an Hyper-V standalone server. So it's depend on the scenario. You can add a CVMM, you can add Hyper-V cluster. Okay, so just click next. So I am just adding my credential to add the Hyper-V service. So my domain name is test/lab/administrator. I'm just entering my password. Okay, it is just adding the Hyper-V. So these are the components which will be installed on the servers. Can you see this? Due to this modification, following components will be installed on the target host on the Hyper-V server. Just click apply. it is starting deploying the components on the Hyper-V servers. As you know, with the Veeam latest version, Veeam 11, they have many more features added to it, like continuous data protection, CDP, and reliable ransomware protection. Also, it supports Amazon Glacier and Azure Archive. Before, we only used to backup from disk to S3. Now it started supporting Amazon Glacier and Azure Archive also for a long time support, long time data storage. I mean, so it is installing the required packages on the Hyper-V server, on the target server, and it will collect the all the disk information and also the virtual machines information residing on this Hyper-V. You can see here that the server has been successfully installed all the packages. So we will just click and finish it. So as you can see now the Hyper-V machine is added here, the standalone IP with the details with IP address 192.168.10.20. Also you can see it will inventory all the virtual machines here. Just we will wait for some time. Now see, it has added all the virtual machines inside the console. DC02 and file servers are the virtual machines which is residing inside this Hyper-V host. And you can see the used size of this virtual machine and also the total provision size with the host IP address. So these are the information fetched from the Hyper-V host by the Veeam backup server. So now we will come back to the home page and we can create a backup job for this Hyper-V host. So when you right click on any of the blank page, you have an option called backup. When you click backup, as soon as you click backup, you will have option for the virtual machine, Windows computer, Linux computer, Mac computer, and file share. So in our case, we will back it up the virtual machine. If you want to back it up a physical server, you have an option called Windows computer. If you want to back up a Linux server, you have this option as well. Also with the latest version, they have a Mac support also, so that you can take a backup of Apple endpoints. So in our case, we will take the virtual machine backup in the Hyper-V host. So we will go with the virtual machine. So here you can give the known job name. So I will just give job name as Hyper-V backup job. So with the latest version, you have a Veeam has introduced a new option called high priority. So if you have multiple jobs, okay, in the backup console, you can give the priority to the job. So in my case, I am just doing only creating one job, so I don't need that option. Okay. In the virtual machine, I just click next. It will come to the virtual machine tab where you can select the virtual machines which you want to back it up. Okay, so I have only one host with two virtual machine inside. If you have 10 virtual machine or 100 virtual machines, it will list all the virtual machines inside this Hyper-V host. In our case, we have only two virtual machines, so I am just adding the virtual machines here. So you can see it is calculating the size, which has a total 19 GB size. Okay, so I have selected the virtual machine. So with the up and down arrow, you can move the virtual machine up and down. Yeah, if you want DC202 to process first, you can add this on the top, and if you want the file server to process first, you can move it on the top. Okay, in my case, I will make DC2 so that I want DC0 to process first. Okay, just click next. So here we have option called selecting backup proxy and the backup repository. Okay, so in case of Hyper-V, you actually don't require a separate proxy. The Hyper-V server will act itself as a proxy. In case of VMware, you need a dedicated proxy. You can use the backup server as proxy, or you can use a separate machine as proxy. But in case of Hyper-V, Hyper-V server itself will act as a proxy. Okay, and we have an option to select the default backup repository. and I have a default backup repository with 2.2 TB size. And retention policy. Retention policy in the sense how long you want to keep the data in the storage. In my case, I want to keep it 7 days. If you want to keep it for 14 days, you can just modify it. So retention means how long you want to store the data in the storage location. Okay. So I am just clicking next. I have many options here for a GSF backup, and secondary job means if you want to take a tab backup job, as soon as the disk backup completes, you can configure a tab backup to start, so that the same backup job will go to the same backup file will move to the tab. Okay. So in my case, I don't have a tab library attached to it. So I am just going with the disk backup job with a retention period of 7. Also, if you go to advanced tab, you can see many options here. Okay, you have a backup job selection, in the sense incremental backup and reverse incremental. The main difference with the incremental and reverse incremental is that if you select incremental backup, the first backup always will be a full backup and the remaining backups will be incremental. Say for example, here you can see a synthetic full backup creating on Saturday. You click on days, you can see when the synthetic backup is creating. The synthetic backup is creating on Saturday. So first Saturday always will be a full backup. Okay, the remaining days from Sunday to Friday, this will create an incremental backup. So first full backup, remaining days in the incremental backup. So you have an option also called reverse incremental. Reverse incremental means the final backup which is available on your storage will always be a full backup. Okay, you can read it. Increments are injected into the full backup file. So the last backup will always be a full backup. Say for example, Saturday, if a full backup is created, Sunday incremental will be created, but this incremental will be injected to the yesterday's full backup, and the final backup will always be a full backup. So this is called reverse incremental backup. So the default selection is always incremental backup with a full backup of synthetic full backup of on Saturday. And you can see two full backup here, synthetic full backup and active full backup. The main difference is that synthetic full backups, the backup files are created, the full backup is created from the previous full and incremental file. Okay, and active full backup means the full backup, the backup file is copied directly from the production, like your VMware or Hyper-V infrastructure. It will directly copy the backup files from the Hyper-V and VMware to the repository. So the full backup active full backup always will have an impact on production. But synthetic full backup, in the sense, synthetic full backup create the backup files, full backup files from the previous increment and full backup file. Okay, active full backup file will be created, copied directly from the infrastructure. So always infrastructure will have a load on that. But in case of synthetic full backup files, the backup file will copied from the repository, from the previous backup files. And you have many options called the storage level, maintenance, and also compression level. You can select compression level. There are many compression level: dedupe friendly, optimal, high, extreme. This I will discuss on the next session. And many other options called Hyper-V script enable, Hyper-V guest QSIN. This is for application aware backups. And you have CBT change block tracking for incremental backups. So here I am selecting as an incremental backup, just selecting OK. Click next. Okay. So when you enable, you can enable application aware here, and you go to application, you can see all the virtual machines selected will be application aware enabled. Okay, so if you select it and just click edit, if you want this machine, one of the machine, you don't need application aware, you just disable this application aware. So as soon as you enable application aware, this will be applicable to all the virtual machines in that backup job. Okay, so if you don't want a particular machine with the application aware backup, just click edit and disable the application job here. So the main feature of application, mainly this gives the transactionally consistent backup and replicas for the virtual machines. So if you want to restore only an application, say for example application aware, we will normally enable it for AD, Exchange, SQL, Oracle, yeah, these type of applications. So if you want to restore only as an application, like if you want to restore only SQL database, if you want to restore only Oracle database, you can enable this application aware option. The main thing you should understand that this will give transactionally consistent backup and replicas of virtual machines. You have one more option here called enable guest file indexing. So Veeam has one product called Veeam Backup Enterprise Manager. So it has one feature called one-click restore. Okay, so indexing will enable, it will create a catalog of file and folders, or you can say it will create an index of file and folders so that the system can search for the file and folders inside the backup file. So if you want indexing to be enabled, you can select this option. So I will disable application aware for my case. Just click next. Here you can schedule the job. If you want to daily, just select every day daily. If you want some particular days on a week, select on weekdays, and you have an option to select the days. If you don't want the backup to be run on Friday and Saturday, you can just disable that option. Okay, so I'm just selecting it, just click apply. So it will apply the whole job settings, and you have an option run the job when I click finish. So just click finish. So as soon as I click finish, it will start running the job. You can see one running task. So just double click it. You can see the details. Also, I will show you one option in here you can see in the repository, properties of a repository. Can you see here use per machine backup files? Okay, if you go, see, now we have started a backup job, right? Okay, so if you go to the repository, see, you can see Veeam has created one backup job. So the first backup, as I said, this always will be a full backup job. Okay, so the full backup job extension is VBK. Yeah, you just remember it. And for the incremental backup, this will be VIB. Okay, so the first always will be a full backup. So it started creating a full backup. Okay, so if you have 10 machines or 100 virtual machines inside a single job, Veeam will create a single VBK file for full backup. Okay, so if this file lost, all data will lose. Okay, so if you enable this option, use per VM backup files, Veeam will create full backup file for each virtual machine. Like for example, here you can see only one backup file, correct? So for the, I have how many, you can see here I have two virtual machines. So for two virtual machine, DC02 and file01. So for both backup files, I mean both virtual machine backup is residing on a single file. Okay, so if I enable per VM backup files from the repository, if I enable this option, per VM backup files option, Veeam will create separate backup file for each virtual machines. For example, if you come here now for DC02 and file server backup, the backup file is a single VBK file. So if I enable per VM backup file, it will create separate VBK for DC02 and create separate VBK for file server. Okay, so you can use this option. You can discuss with your customer and you can advise them according to their scenario. Now the backup job is started. You can see this. It is showing the duration, processed and transferred. Transferred is the data transferred from source to the repository or the target. Yeah. And also here you can see something called bottleneck. So you can see which is your bottleneck, which is creating the performance problem. Is it the source or the target or the network? So in my case, it is showing network is the bottleneck. but I am getting 16 Mbps. It's not fast, but as you know, I am created a test lab for you. So this is not a high performance network, It's still running. So we will just for some time, wait for some time. So I will just, since we have time, so I will just to show you what are the other tabs it shows. So here you can add your Hyper-V or VMware server. As I said, you have many options here in the virtual infrastructure. When you click add, you have VMware or Hyper-V options available. Okay, and here also, if you want to take a physical server backup, okay, so you can create a protection group here, and you can add individual computers. If you want to add a physical server, you can add it here, and you can give an IP address, and you can add this machine, and as soon as you add, this will deploy the agent. For physical server, it require an agent. This will deploy the agent to the physical server, and then we can create a backup job. So here we have option. Also we can deploy, we can add the import of the servers from the OU. You can just give the OU name. It will search for the OU. Just give your OU name, and it will import the uh, import the machine into the Veeam console. Okay, I don't have more OUs and all created, so I am not sure. Yeah, see, I don't have much OUs here. So this is, since this is a test lab, but if you want to add all computers, just click all computers. Or if you want to expand the computers in it, just click. Yeah, it will show you. You can add, select only that particular computer. Okay, and then you can add. You enter the credential, and that's all. And also see, you have an option to install backup agent on the server. So this will add the servers and install backup agent, so that you can create a backup job from the Veeam backup console. So everything will be done by the protection group. Even you can add a Linux machine here to back it up if you have the license. So this is one of the option. And in the backup infrastructure, as you know, you can configure proxy repositories, and also you can configure extra scale out repositories. You can add object storage here. You have an option to connect. If you want to add S3 bucket, just click S3 bucket, Veeam for AWS. So you can add an object storage as a repository for Veeam S3. Yeah, you have the option here. Just provide your access key and secret key and select the bucket. I don't have that account now, so I cannot explore more on this. Maybe in the next lab I can show you. And scale out repository, Veeam has this feature. You can add multiple extents on a repository. In the sense, say for example, now we have created one default repository, right? In many cases, customer may have two or more repositories. They will create multiple repositories. So if you want, you can add a scale out repository, and in the performance tier, you can add multiple repositories here. If you have 2 3, you can add 2 3. So what is the purpose of this multiple extents on this multiple repository means, if you want to move data from this repository to any other repository, you have an option. You can put it in the maintenance mode, and you can move the data to other extents. So this is possible from Veeam. These are the options, and these are for the sure backups. Application groups and virtual labs needs to be created, so you can test the backup files. I mean, you have already have a backup, and you want to test the backup files and virtual machines and replicas. So you create sure backups, which is a beautiful feature from Veeam. Okay, so these are the servers which you can see, managed servers. And in the storage infrastructure tab, you can add storage. Like if you want to add a 3 part storage or Primera storage, you have that option. You can add a Dell, IBM, okay, and you can take the snapshot level backup. There are many features in it. Next is tab infrastructure. Here you can add a tab server. Tab server in the sense, if you have a tab library attached to a server, you can add this server as a tab server in Veeam console. Okay, then we can request the tab server to take a backup of our disk backup and move it to the tab. So a server attached with a tab library, you can add it to the Veeam console with this tab server option. I don't have a tab server. It's very simple. Or if you want to add a new server as a tab server, just provide the IP of the tab server where the tab library is attached and just add it, enter the credential, add it. As soon as you add it, all the tab libraries will be visible here below this tab infrastructure. Then you can create your media pools and you can move your backups to tab. File option here. You can take the file backup of that particular server. If you want to backup a particular file on this Veeam backup server, you can move it to a disk or tab using this option. See, you can see create a new backup job with this file. If you want to move a folder or file and create a backup job only for the folder and file, you can do that. You have the option for that. Now let's see what is the status of our. It is still 8%, so we have to wait until it completes. So you can see here the backup job is now completed. Okay. So you have all the details here. How long it took, and what is the processing rate, and how much data is processed, and how much data is transferred to repository 11 GB with 1.7x compression. Okay. Now I will show you the same. See, you can see the backup files here. I mean, the backup configuration. DC2 is here. So you just right click on this. You have many options for the recovery. You can restore as a see, instant recovery means you can run the virtual machine from the backup file. You don't need to restore it. Okay, so you have Veeam provides an option for instant recovery as well. So you can restore entire VM to the production. Okay, instant recovery, you can run the VM from the backup file itself, and later on you can migrate it to the production. Entire VM means it will restore it to the production. So restore VM files, like you can restore it as a vmdk file, and guest files means you can restore the individual files and folders from that server. I will show you here. Just click browse, it will list all the files and folders inside it. Then you can select it and you can restore. You can expand it, and you can expand the files. So if you want to restore it, you have the option. So either you can it will overwrite, or you can keep the existing files, or if you want, you can overwrite the existing file. Also you have an option to copy to, and you can copy to the Veeam server. So these are the options. Okay, I hope you like this session. See you in the next session. Thank you very much.